Sometimes it takes shrimp, other times it could be a minnow. In the summertime, you may have to switch to some type of finfish. But nevertheless, our guides are standing by with all the tips and tricks for when you want to use bait. This is the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, bringing you a special show today, complete with one of our very own Fish Bites Upper Coast Region captain with us here in the studio, and theme show where we're talking all about the bait. Right, Rick?
Absolutely, Brie. You know, the cool part about it is that our guys, both saltwater and freshwater, are going to have some great information. So the only way you're going to check it out is you got to stay right here.
And listen up. All right, well, Dave has some help over at the Workbench today, and I know you and Carl are going to have a lot to say on the bait subject.
Well, Carl's going to have a lot to say. Carl Weston from our northern coastal region. He's going to be talking to us all about catching big kingfish and wahoos on live baits, which not a lot of people catch fish on kingfish. Wahoo on live baits.
No, it is a different technique. It's something that not everybody tries, but it's something that if you love to catch big fish, you need to try it.
That's right. Live bait catches big fish.
Well,
Yes,
we
sir.
all like to catch some big fish, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, we're starting out in the Star Tri-Middle Fresh region where Matt Loescher is talking bait, but he's also talking big bites on Toledo Bend and Richland Chambers. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, Bree. So when it comes to the topic of live bait in the Middle Fresh region, it's mostly used for panfish here. And for us on the crappie and whatnot, minnows definitely dominate that category. You know, you can get your live minnows at just about any local tackle store around your home lake there, and they work great for catching the crappie and just about anything that swims, really. Now, some folks do cast net, some shad, but they're really tough to keep alive if you're not set up specifically for that. You got to have a special round tank and a filter and whatnot. They're just hard to keep alive, so it's not practical for most people. But it is good if you want to just catch some catfish or something like that, because they don't have to necessarily be alive, but fresh is good. The other live bait option that's really good right now, especially right now on most of these lakes, is the live crickets, you know, those little cockroach-looking dudes. They chirp up your boat and, you know, make a bunch of noise for a while, but the little bluegills just love them, and a lot of people like to do that right now. Don't really use much live bait for the big largemouth myself because of it just kills a lot of them because they get hooked deep, so we avoid that. But for the crappie and the bluegill and the catfish, it's wide open for sure. Now, speaking of the bass, getting into my bass report, the story is basically fishing flooded lakes right now. I mean, we've had a tremendous amount of rain late in the spring this year, so it's really throwing a wrench in a lot of our game plans for what we typically do. A lot of the fish have been starting to set up offshore, you know, getting into that early summer pattern, but this rising water and all the current through our reservoirs right now that we've got here in the Middle Fresh region has just brought a lot of those fish back shallow. That's especially been the case on Toledo Bend this week. The lake has been above full pool for a couple of weeks now, and we continue to get more and more rain, so they've had the floodgates open. They're pulling a lot of mud out of those flowing creeks when they've got those floodgates open. So the shallow bite has been the better bite this week. White swim jigs, topwater baits, and flipping presentations have all been real good for that. And the shad spawn is still in full swing as well. So get out there before dawn to take advantage of that with a white spinnerbait. Double nickel blades are really good on that. The water temperature has been kind of hanging in the low to mid 70s. And, you know, we just had our Sealy Big Bass Splash Tournament this week, and a lot of good fish were caught. I think it took about almost a 5-pounder to get paid most of the hours. And then overall, there was 4 9-pounders weighed in, almost double-digit fish. And to take top honors was Mr. Steven Rushmeyer. I apologize if I butchered that last name. He's from Slidell, Louisiana. And he caught a 9.87-pound bass to take the overall top big bass prize. Won himself a bass boat. So congratulations to him. I apologize I didn't get a picture on that one, but I know it was a big, pretty fish. Now, moving on to Richland Chambers, Mr. Thurman Selman, up there with Bass's Specialty Guide Service, reports a similar situation. He said that the lake is high and flooded also, and they had the floodgates open on that one too. So up the tributaries, the water is very stained. The main lake, he said, is lightly stained, and then the water is up about 2 feet. He said the bass are chasing shad that are spawning now, and then the docks are still good for catching bass too. The square bills and the worms around the docks should still be good there. He also gave me a report on the hybrids. He said they're biting good on Richland Chambers as well. And he said you need to look for those around the shad spawn too. So you'll probably want to get out there early in the morning to take advantage of the bass and the black bass and the hybrid bass bite. Here on Toledo Bend, we don't have many hybrids, but we do have a lot of white bass, and they've been showing up on some of these deeper main lake flats and points. That's been getting pretty good lately. And then at night on the lighted docks, they've been catching a ton of them. You can really fill a cooler up fast with those things. They're good to eat, and they're a lot of fun to catch. Now switching over to crappie to finish out. The crappie are still biting good on Toledo Bend despite the flooding. They're just hanging closer to the bottom on most of the spots. Anywhere from about 12 to 20 foot deep is where they're hanging out on the main lake structure. Due to that current, it's just got them kind of sucked down to the bottom instead of up in the trees as much. And then there's a few still holding, suspended in those trees, especially the bigger ones. And I'll leave you with a photo here of the Oakland family with a nice table full of crappie they caught with me recently.
All right, thanks for starting us off there, big man. We'll talk to you soon. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Fresh region. He said the bass are biting in the shallow, flooded waters on shad imitating baits, and then white baits and hybrids are chasing shad in the shallows, and then crappie are in 12 to 20 feet biting jigs and those minnows he talked about.
All right, Rick. Well, as you know, a good bite always starts with good bait. So let's get Captain Chad Kinney on the line to tell us what to look out for in the Alvey Reels Middle Coast region, Lower Coast region. Talk to us, Chad.
Tell you what, the bait situation, I love talking about that. I've been doing it for years. We own commercial shrimp boats, which are bait boats, so I can give you a good history of this stuff. So bait can play a huge role on inshore and offshore, which people kind of focus more on the inshore, but offshore is huge also. Using proper baits and the size is a real big key to success at that. We at Mansfield Marina there, we got 3 bait boats, as I mentioned. We got 2 in Port Mansfield, we got 1 in Ingleside, which is around Corpus. So that keeps everything fresh throughout the season. And also tells me, which is really neat, kind of what the fish are feeding on and the patterns throughout the seasons. When those shrimp boats drag, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the shrimp were very slow. Now the shrimp are everywhere, and the trout and redfish are gorging on them, and they're not eating anything else. So right now, they're hitting the trout and redfish on there, so live cork, live popping cork, live shrimp, and popping cork works really well. And then they're going to start moving off outside, so then the croaker and the piggies will start dominating the live bait area, which will start taking off on the trout bite and some reds there. Headed offshore, the fresh bycatch off the shrimp boats, if you're able to get in there to any of your local marinas and try for that, that's excellent. If not, get the most freshly freezed ones if you can, and take a variety of fish in case you get a picky bite on the snapper. If you're deeper trolling, ballyhoo is a key. You got to take some really good ballyhoo, some blackbacks, get some different sizes in that. And you can also get some blue runners or some bonita and some other stuff when you're targeting pelagics if you're live baiting. Main thing is, like I said, get the freshest bait you can. If you're using the dead bait, go ahead and fill up a 5-gallon bucket with water and thaw it out in the morning on your way out, so it'll help you keep it fresh. So moving over to red fishing, it's good out of the Royal City area, up in the flats, head to Gaswell Flats, up around the Green Island on the east side. The fish are still way up shallow, so look for wakes early, and look for the mullet definitely. They're still holding on to those little mullets. They're going to be way up in probably about a foot of water and then fall off later. Like I said, the key is the bait. You got to find that. Once you find it, stop, make a wade, and get some mirror lures out early. Some top water's working great, mirror lures. And then when you start sliding out deeper to knee deep and mid thigh, switch over to like a saltwater assassin, sea shad, magic grass, still a really great color, like with the 8-ounce jig head. And then work those sand pockets, work them a little slow right now. The sand pockets by the grass beds there. Lots of smaller reds in there, which is a lot of fun to catch, but there's also some slot size mix in there with the redfish. I got a picture here of a buddy of mine, Gila Monster, there on a Shallow Sport X3. You got a guy from Minnesota who's never caught a redfish, but it's his first red, though. It's 27 inches.
That's a nice
Congrats.
one, bud. Good job.
Yeah, it's a good fat one there. So moving over to offshore, the state water's still remaining good in that 60 to 90 foot of water. And then there's some kingfish starting to show up, which the water's warming up, so they'll be coming in. And they're also kind of holding around that structure in the 60 to 90 foot range. So state water snapper, I mentioned, get some fresh bait. I love taking some different bait from the shrimp boats I've got there. I'll get spot croaker, squid, mullet, lizardfish, pogies. All that stuff works great. Have them fresh, put them on ice, and put them in a 5-gallon bucket ready to go. And then put them on an Eagle Claw 12 to 13-ounce circle hook. And if the current's bad, use a double rig. And if it's a little bit lighter, what I like to do is get a 2 to 3 ounce egg weight, put it on your main line, your Mamoy, and then just tie a barrel swivel to it, which that's basically a stopper for your egg weight, and tie 24 to 30 inches or so of your Momoy 80 to 100 pound, shock leader basically on it to your 12 to 13 ounce eagle claw hook. This will help you get some suspended fish and maybe lower it down in the water column a little slower. I like to use some lighter tackle also this time of year when the water starts getting a little bit better and the current gets better. So I like going to that Alvy 100 spinning reel. You can load it up with some diamond braid, 40 to 60 pound. It gives you plenty of line and plenty of torque and plenty of drag set. And when you get plenty of action on those reef fish, it's a lot of fun. So moving into the kingfish, like I mentioned, they're starting to creep in, and I'll be talking about these guys some more later, but they're sticking around that structure, which where the bait's at, that 60 to 90 foot range. So you can also use some ribbon fish, which you can get from your local marinas. If you're snapper fishing, float that out the back end, while you're snapper fishing. Or if you're done snapper fishing and you just want to target the kingfish, then troll some mirror lure divers about 5 to 6 knots. I like trolling about 3 of these lines. They dive really well. And then make sure you put wire on there with a haywire twist, of course, because these things are toothy and they're going to hit them real, real fast. I like pulling these on Penn Torque 30s. I do like them spooled up with mono Momoy, 30 to 40 pound. Reason for this, it gives a little stretch, I think, so when they hit it fast, their side hook in the jaw or somewhere else, you're not going to pull it as much. If you do want a lot more line for some reason, you can back it up with some diamond braid. And then troll over your structure, utilize your Garmin sounder to look for bait balls, and just continue to work that area. And some brighter colors might help you with your flash on your baits. This kingfish love hitting by eyesight. And then hopefully you can't control this, but get some clear days. When that sun comes up, it helps the visibility on those kingfish so they can see the bait better.
All right, thank you so much, Chad. Great report from the Alvy Lower Coast region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the shallow sport boats hotspot. He says inshore, redfish are holding on the east side of the gas wells to Green Island out of Arroyo City. Try Berkeley topwater early in the morning, and then maybe a Bass Assassin 4-inch sea shad as the day heats up. And then offshore, State Water Snapper continues to produce with some kingfish showing up around the structure in 60 to 90 feet of water, Brie.
All right, Rick, we've got our in-studio captain from the Fish Bites Upper Coast Region report coming up next. But first, we're checking in with Carl Weston and Dave at the Workbench for some Bait 101. Coming at you, gentlemen. You ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Carl drove here all the way from Texas.
Oh, he's ready.
Yeah, on a unicycle.
On a unicycle?
What are we going to talk about?
How tired my legs are.
All right, we'll be back. Good one.
We're going to talk about some live bait today.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Fenwick. Bajío. Fresh eyes for a rich life. Garmin. Plot your paradise. Fibertex. Leaders in fiberglass fabrication and repair. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. Penn. Let the battle begin. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Yamaha's reputation for saltwater reliability is driven by the 4.2-liter V6 Offshore's 97% reliability and overall performance. Reimagined with new advantages like built-in digital electric steering for incredible responsiveness and exhaust rerouting for more powerful reverse thrust. The legacy of the reliable Yamaha 4.2-liter V6 continues, now more refined and capable than ever. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Proven with 20 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. And now, through June 21st, you can launch into your summer with sizzling rebates of up to $2,500. Versatility, control, performance, and design. The Skeeter Summer Sizzling Savings Event is happening now through June 21st. Visit your local dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com. Skeeter, it's more than just a boat, it's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com.
Yeah, here we are at the Rigs and Techniques, and we got Carl Weston coming all the way from the Fish Bites Upper West Coast region.
Yes, sir.
Going to talk to us about going offshore and catching some big baits to catch big wahoos and kings. Now, a lot of guys don't use live baits to catch wahoos, but what kind of baits are you doing? What are we doing to catch those baits?
Well, we're using these great products right here, like R&R, sabikis.
Right, use the sabiki rig to catch a live bait.
You do?
You're catching big live baits though, right? So you're going to be wanting to use something that...
Yeah, we are catching big live baits.
What's your favorite ones to catch? What are your...
This HT16
yeah.
is one of the better sabikis to use, and we're catching big hardtails.
Big hardtails,
yeah,
blue runners.
2-3 pounds.
Let me hold it for a second.
Pick that out.
Yeah, because this has got the 50-pound main line and the 30-pound branches, because the jackfish fights hard.
Well, if you get 3 or 4 on the line at one time, they'll break off unless you have a good quality product. So
what makes the blue runner the best bait for what we're doing here?
Well, accessibility for one. We have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And with the oil platforms in the Gulf, they're easier to catch, and they're hardy. They're a hardy fish. You keep them in the live well all day, it's hard to kill them.
So how far out are you starting to target these baits?
Well, if we start out, say we want smaller hardtails, we'll start out on the can buoys, actually, on the way out the channel.
To catch little yellow fins and stuff like that?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And we'll move out probably 20, 30-mile range to the rigs there. So we're in 100 foot of water, and out there you're going to load up on the bigger hardtails, up to 2-3 pounds.
So what's the size that you're really looking to, what's your favorite one when you catch it? Oh, that's the good one.
Well, I mean, the biggest one I can find, Dave.
Really?
Really for wahoo, if you're going for wahoo. I've never seen one too big for a wahoo.
I got you.
And, bait dictates the size of the fish.
Right.
So I've trolled 4 or 5 pound hardtails before, and you catch up 80, 90 pound range wahoo.
Right.
And so.
What about with the kingfish? Is it the same kind of deal?
It is. It is.
You're bigger the bait, the bigger the fish.
Yeah, your rig won't be as big for the kingfish. Hooks will be a little smaller, but a wahoo doesn't seem to have any problem taking any size hook, any size bait.
Right. So this one here that you've got is made up for a kingfish, right?
Yes, this is more of a kingfish size.
Right.
And we started with a 200-pound swivel with a 100-pound haywire.
You have to have a good swivel because keep it from spinning up.
Yes, yes. And this, you simply haywire twist to the swivel, haywire twist back through the first eyelet of your treble, which will be your nose hook. Mm-hmm. Then you go through that eye again, and you pick up your trailer. And of course, your trailer is going to dictate the size by the size of the bait.
Yeah.
So
you measure it out when you put your bait out there.
Yeah. If I've got really big baits, I'm gonna extend this trailer hook down maybe 4 or 5 inches. It may be a foot long.
Right.
To actually let the bait swim freely. For one, you don't want to disturb his action.
Right.
And then you want to have it in the back part of the bait,
of
course.
Do you pin it or do you let it hang free?
I pin it.
Okay. Do you put it towards the back or under the belly?
On the back.
I got
up
you.
On top. Yeah. So nose hook and then pinned up behind the dorsal.
Well, do you ever use do you ever use coated line and all that stuff? I know that we were talking about it earlier for the wahoos.
We do. We use coated cable sometimes up to 200-pound test, and like you said, we'll double crimp the hooks and swivels once again, because if you're double crimped, it's not going to slip. So,
when you're using the braided line, do you use these nice cutters here, or this is kind of like a Felco, or what is it?
Yes, this is a nice clean cut, so that when you're slipping through your sleeves, you know how it'll fray up.
Right.
You want a nice clean cut.
Right.
That slows you down.
Are you using crimps or?
Yeah, we're using crimps on the coated cable.
Right.
But then on the haywire, you can just cut with these, and your haywire twist.
So once you've got all your baits rigged up and ready to go, how far out are you putting them back there? I know you've got a little whiteboard here that shows us a little bit about how far you've got them back there.
Dave, we'll run usually 3 baits. You don't want any more of that. Sometimes 2, depending on the sea conditions.
Right.
But we'll run one, our shotgun, out of the center rod holder, about 150 foot back. So we're trolling around live bottom structure.
Right. The flower gardens.
The flower gardens, east and west flower gardens, and we're circling So to keep the fish from getting tangled when you hook them, because usually when you hook a wahoo, they're in a school, you're going to catch 1 or 2, maybe 3, you might load the lines.
Right.
You don't want them crossing right off the bat.
So you want them a little bit staggered.
So you stagger like 150 foot, we got marked there, 75 on the port, maybe 50 on the starboard side, and you do your nice slow turn. And when the fish come on, you can move the rods around without wrapping everything up.
Which is normally what happens to me.
Yeah,
Either
well,
that or the
it's
guy
just-
takes off and starts to pass us, like what I was talking
Right.
about before.
Right.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. Why don't you go into your report now? Tell us about what we're going to be catching in your region this thing. Now that you don't have to, we don't have to do it remote. You can do it right here.
Okay. Well, we've started with some of it already. And so, you know, when you're going fishing, you need live bait. If you're going to catch big fish, you need live bait. What we just touched on. This brings us to some of the best products, like we were speaking about. We're going to catch our hardtails with our sabiki rigs. And then they have these nice little dehookers now that we can dehook with. You can drop them. You can drop them in the live well without touching them. You've got the wet nets now. We can dip them out of the live well, and so that kind of covers bait. Now, if we want to go inshore, our first inshore species is trout. We're moving into another week of warmer weather, guys, and really good fishing. The water temps are about 74 to 78 degrees in the Sabine area, and the trout have been moving around the jetties and shorelines. If you're out early in the morning around Galveston Bay or Trinity, look out for the oil slicks and the birds around the oyster reefs now. It's a sure sign the fish are there and they are feeding. Also, we touched on it earlier, live bait like shrimp on a popping cork or small finger mullet will definitely do the trick. We have a picture today of a young man with a trout.
Nice.
So moving offshore,
There's the little fella.
talk about Dorado. This week we finally got some offshore action. Visiting one of our favorite spots to bring home the mahi, the Dorado bait has really been on fire, guys. Going out about 60 miles, finding there's some great weed lines gathering up in the current has really been the go-to place for the week. These weed lines have been full of bait and the pelagics are trolling hard around it. When you find a spot, or you know, where there's a good school, try throwing a bucktail jig tipped with some Fish Bites Easy Shrimp. I like the pink, you know, let the good times roll because they'll be coming to the boat fast and heavy. Now, when you're pulling into check-ins left and right, things will get messy really quick on the deck. So I like to keep a bucket handy with some Starbright boat wash and a nice sponge to kind of keep things clean. We got a picture today of Ryan with a really pretty Dorado. So moving over to Wahoo, like we were talking about, is one of my personal favorites. The water temps in the upper coast are still pretty cool, so these guys are still swimming around the structure. East and West Flower Gardens, like you and Dave and I had talked about, are still holding these big fish, and man, they are a blast to target. Moving out as far as Geyer Bank, the Wahoo are really on the run, and these things really like to chase live baits, like we talked about. Your rigging techniques are very similar to kingfish. You know, start out, upsize your leader, upsize your hooks. We like to set up with a heavy, like a Berkeley braided cable with some really heavy trebles. Personally, I prefer using the largest hardtail I can find in my live well, the bigger the better. So my setup will consist of a 50 wide pan, spooled with 80-pound braid, tied to a Diamond Moy wind-on leader. And now we'll bump troll these around structure, and it'll be on fire. So today we got a picture of Big Nick with a big Wahoo.
Nice. All right, bud. Thank you so much, Carl. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the R&R tackle hotspots from the Upper Coast region. He says inshore, trout, look for the oil slicks and birds around the oyster reef. Throw a bass assassin, 4-inch sea shad, chicken on the chain. And then offshore, wahoos use R&R sabikis to catch hardtails and then bump troll those live baits over structure.
I love having our guys in here, Rick.
You
it's
do?
so nice.
Me
yeah,
too.
of course.
Yeah.
And so what I'm getting from Carl is size matters.
Always.
Always.
Of course.
Well, not always. Elephants eat peanuts, as Dave says sometimes, right, Dave? Always, he says that. All right. Well, if you would like a chance to win this 1952 Chevy 3100 Hot Rod, we talk about it every single week. All you have to do is purchase raffle tickets at ccaflorida.org/hot rod. What do you have to lose? Nothing.
Nothing.
And you have all this to gain.
20 bucks.
20 bucks.
That's it.
That's nothing. All right, if you want the bite in the lower Fresh and Garmin Middle Coast regions, you got to be in the know about the bait, so stay hooked. And remember to keep up with everything fishing in Texas. Make sure to head on over to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and to see new fishing adventures along with reports, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy. See you soon.
All right.
All right.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvy Reels, a better way to fish. Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. And Penn, let the battle begin.
The Yamaha VMAX V6 SHO continues to deliver the level of performance that pro bass and multi-species anglers demand. Underneath a bold and aggressive new look, an upgraded charging system with 40% more charging power meets the amped-up demand for today's advanced electronics. The VMAX SHO, raw power, reliability, and exhilarating performance for every angler who loves the sport enough to invest in the best. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites. We are the Fish Bites Nation, and this is your invitation. So grab some fish bites and get busy casting, because you can't join the nation without doing the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures, or visit fishbites.com.
Today's Power Pole tip is about the warranty and the service. Now, Power Pole is owned and operated, family owned and operated, and guys, I want to tell you, with that in mind, that's one of the reasons why they have the best customer service and warranty program in the industry. They want to make sure that your Power Pole experience every single day is flawless. The thing that I like is that you can troubleshoot your problems through the Sea Monster app. But if you're not able to figure out the problem yourself, they want you to call. So we have a 1-800 number that you can call, and they'll answer that phone call and try to troubleshoot the problem while you're out on the water. If you're not able to, then they'll recommend you to go to a local dealer. They will get in contact with the dealer to make sure that you have no problems whatsoever. The reason why Power Pole is such a great product is certainly they stand behind their product. They want you to have a great experience, and that's one of the single most important parts of their business model. If you have any questions about Power Pole, you can go to powerpole.com, and that's today's Power Pole tip of the week. You know, Brie, as Power Pole starts to broaden their horizons, they got the charge, they got the Power Poles, they have the sticks. You know, the key is being able to have questions answered by people that not only sell it, but they also design it, so that they can enlighten us on how they were, what they were thinking when they built this. Yeah. Because everybody uses it slightly different, and we can all learn from one another, you know, like the
Right.
travel strap, little simple things. But the cool part is by being able to call that 1-800 number if you're out on the water and have a problem and you can't troubleshoot it through the Sea Monster app, it's nice knowing that there's somebody standing by.
Yeah, and I noticed the guys in the video, they all looked like fishermen. They all looked like they actually use the product, so they know exactly how to help you. Customer service is 100% everything in a
Absolutely.
product.
And it's hard to find good customer service in
It
today's
is,
world.
especially today,
Yes.
currently's world. All right, we're checking in with our Lower Fresh Region guide, Matt Reed, and seeing how the bait is getting us that bite on Lake Falcon, Choke Canyon, Fayette, Somerville, Lake Travis, Inks Lake, and Buchanan. So, Matt, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. We got a lot of largemouth to cover here. Falcon Lake, the bass are still cooperating really well. We gained a little bit of water with this rain, but we're still over 42-foot low. We could use a slight flood, to say the least. The deep crankbait bite has improved with some true giants beginning to show up. As always, you can pick up a Carolina rig, soft plastic, and catch you a lot of numbers. Mike Bates has sent me a report from Choke Canyon. Topwater bite's getting better. It's got some 5 and 6 pounders on top this week with a lot of numbers also. He says that should just keep improving. There's still bass in the hydrilla, shallow. The grass is a little spotty right now, so you have to look around for it. He's catching them on moving baits in the grass, you know, a crankbait, a rattle bait. On the outside edge, you want to pick up a Texas rig, big worm, lots of fish there. With that scattered grass, there's more fish deep on Choke Canyon right now than there has been in the last year or so. Catching those fish on a Carolina rig and deep cranks. Also, a 1-ounce spinnerbait will get you a big one. He's also begging for rain, so maybe he can get a little more water. Greg Boyd sent me a report from Fayette County. Fished the reeds and the grass edge early with a swim bait and a belly-weighted swim bait, or a swim jig, excuse me. Offshore bite there, the deep bite has been really good. He says some days he just forgoes the shallow bite and moves on out to 10 to 15 foot. Catches them on a Carolina rig and a big shaky head, using soft plastic stick baits. Natural colors with gold or silver flake have been the most effective. Like Somerville, bass are full post spawn. They're up chasing bluegill and shad up shallow. Frogs and walking topwaters are doing well around the shoreline rock and brush. Brian Cotter sent me reports from the Austin area. Lake Travis is fishing well. The topwater bite is picked up. Catching some bigger fish on that topwater bait now. Swim baits will get you some big bites as well if you want to mix it in. You got to watch out. Every now and then a big old striper will grab that swim bait and cause you a little excitement. Soft plastics and jigs and crankbaits have been best for numbers there, though. Inks Lake, he's catching some really nice chunks there. They're biting a wacky worm under and around the docks and reeds. That's the best way to get some numbers. A frog thrown shallow around the reeds is the best way to catch a bigger one. Like Buchanan, it's always good this time of year. Crankbaits and jigs will get the best size, while soft plastic worms or crawl worms is getting the best numbers. Got a picture there of my buddy Tommy Law of a true crankbait falcon giant this week. That's a 12-pounder. It's a full handful.
Oh, you're killing me, man.
Yeah, Rick, you didn't get you one of those, but they're there.
See?
Dang.
You just have to go back again.
I'm ready to come back now. Get the jet cranked up. All right, let's go.
All right, white bass and hybrids. Lake Buchanan, there's large numbers of stripers, white bass, and hybrids in Lake Buchanan. Use your electronics, find the big schools. Swim baits and jigging spoons will catch you a ton. Brian says you can literally catch 100 whites on a spoon without even moving your boat right now. Greg Boyd just sent me some white bass stuff. Somerville, the white bass and hybrids are still biting slabs well. You want to look for the schools in 8 to 15 foot of water on the main lake points. 1 ounce chartreuse and white slabs is working best. There's Greg with a big old hybrid. Those things will stretch your string.
All right, well, thank you so much for the pictures this week, Matt. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at the fiber tech hotspots from the Lower Fresh region. He says that Falcon Lake The bass are in full summer mode. Soft plastics throw to the rock ledges will get you tons of bites, and then add the deep crankbait to look for a big bass giant.
Rick, why did you miss that one?
I was 2 weeks too early. It's typical Murphy's Law stuff, Brie. I go down there, and a cold front comes in the last week of April.
Of course.
I mean,
What is
bad
that?
cold. It doesn't get cold down there.
But what, you still caught an 8-pounder?
Yeah.
Yeah. 8. That's
Yeah,
okay, that's
it was
good.
probably 6.5 when I was there, you know what I mean? But by the time I got back here.
Fisherman's story grew as the time grew, of course. Well, you have to go back for that 12-pounder.
There's only one thing you can't, well, never mind. We'll talk about that.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, our captain in the Garmin Middle Coast region is dissecting all the bait info you're going to need. So let's listen up to Captain Bink Grimes really quick. Talk to us, Bink.
All right, yeah. Natural bait's been a premium this spring with all the blustery winds we've enjoyed. Our water temperatures reach the 70s, and our live shrimp outfishes a plastic probably 10 to 1 this time of year while you're drifting over shell and 5 foot of water in East Matagorda Bay. We all like to catch fish on artificials. However, sometimes that's like beating your head against the wall on days when the water's off color and it's blowing 20 knots. It's just a tough thing to do. This past week, we free-lined shrimp at the jetty and caught trout to 5 pounds in water with about 3 inches of visibility. I tried plastics, but fish wanted the real thing. They know what a real mullet is. They know what a shrimp is. They know what a shad smells like and sounds like in the water. They know the pheromones they give off, and they know when it's real and fake. So, don't fight it. Sometimes live is the best thing. May is beginning to feel a lot like June around here on the Middle Coast. We like it like that. When it gets hot, our fishing gets hot. Wading remains the best to beat the wind lately. Temperatures around 80 degrees this week, and our best catches have come from West Matagorda Bay, around Greens Bayou, and other flats around there with sand and grass undulations. Farther to the west, got Lynn Smith says sand and grass flats around Pascavallo, and a Porter County jetty have been holding good trout on she-dogs and bass assassins and mirror little johns. As the tide rolls in, those slicks start popping around the pass. The birds are picking minnows that are traveling across the bar, and those fish are right behind them. The reefs in East Matagorda Bay have been good on the east end. Been holding good numbers of trout on live shrimp. San Antonio Bay reefs are holding trout as well. You just got to pick a day with light winds and green water. There hadn't been too many of those in the past month, but as we get into late May and early June, our weather starts to stabilize a little bit. In Rockport, Guide Red Price reported that the shorelines around Allen's Bight has been good on Corkies and red shad bass assassins. Also try Trailer Island and Super Flat with our higher tides. There's a lot of low pressure out in the Gulf right now, and it's pulled up our tides about 1 to 2 foot above normal, so those fish are really on the flats right now. Freeport anglers are working the edge of the ICW on live shrimp. The rock groins around the jetty are holding good trout, according to Mike Siegel. He says there's lots of large sand trout as well that have helped fill the bag. Right now, the majority of our anglers that are targeting trout are playing catch and release. That's a good thing. Our fishery is recovering, and sound conservation will hasten our efforts for that. We'll go redfish. Freeport jetty holding bull redfish on crabs and mullet. Nearby Ballows and Bastrop and Chocolate Bay are being good with these high tides. The shell and all over the points and all over the grass lines, those reds are really hanging there. Again, Mike Siegel said there's lots of bulls on the beach, on sardines and shad. In Matagorda, Cutoff Flats, Hellhole, Big Bayou, and Zipperin Bayou have been good, working those edges of the grass line where all those shrimp are trying to hide. Those same spots are holding a lot of black drum as well. Twin Island, Shell Island, rig a live shrimp under a mid-coast popping cork and go to work. Bull redfish in about 35 foot of water in Porter County jetty. Many of those boaters are using their anchoring systems on those trolling motors to hold them in the spot. I worked the jetty last week for 2 days and using my trolling motor. And that's when that power pole charge, it really goes to work. It keeps those batteries that are stressed. It keeps them maneuvering in those strong winds and currents, and really keeps a good charge on our trolling motor. Offshore, Captain Michael Quebeca said, man, those big cobia around the wrecks and structure in 75 to 100 foot of water. He's been feeding them live piggy, perch, and mullet. Just about anything out there with shade and structure are holding cobia. Wahoo and Dorado are showing as well, and those amberjacks are best in 200 foot of water. Red snapper action, if you can brave the seas right now, they've been running 5 to 7 foot, you can catch them, but there's just not a whole lot of people going out. On federal waters, the red snapper season, it's going to open a couple of weeks on June 1st. Bag limits will be 2 per person in federal waters and 4 per person in state waters. That's all I got today for the Garment Middle Coast region. I hope you will release everything and consider releasing and for the betterment of our fishery.
Hey, Bink, I got a question for you.
All right.
So my question is, you know, what is your favorite type of fishing to do this time of year?
Man, without a doubt, I want to be on the shoreline in the morning throwing a topwater. And those new Berkeley Jaywalker topwaters that we've been throwing have been getting it done. I really like it. They're subtle. And, man, when the trout eat them, they bang it hard. That's just my passion. I love throwing a topwater. And I'll throw it till the cows come home, and from daylight until dark, really. You can catch as many fish in the middle of the day on the topwater as you can at daylight or sunset.
All right, one other quick question. So what rod do you like to throw that on? Are you throwing that on a plug rod, or are you throwing that on a spinning rod?
No, man, we're Texas guys. When I'm throwing those plugs, I'm throwing on a plug rod on a bait caster. I like about a 6'4" bait caster, light action. You know, my rod weighs about 3 ounces, so I mean it's like a feather in your hand. And man, when they hit it, it just reverberates all through your arms. And I don't know, it's just, man, I've caught so many on topwater in my life, but I never can get enough of it.
All right, man. Thank you so much for all the info. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Middle Coast region. The trout are good while wading in West Bay with red shad bass assassins on the incoming tide. Redfish are best around the Freeport and Port O'Connor jetties. We're using large table shrimp. You know, people are going to think I'm nuts.
Good? I was
right
gonna
in the
say,
middle of my talking to
okay?
Bink. I'm swatting. There was a bug flying in my face,
Well,
and
that
I didn't recognize my dumb.
Yeah, you were on
was
camera.
on camera. So I'm over here swatting bugs.
We all know.
Here he is, here.
Okay, he's gone crazy.
Sorry.
All right, we're fishing our last honey hole in the Upper Fresh region next, but first we're checking out what our new products Honey has over at his Workbench hole.
He's over here now, I think.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Dave's got him.
No,
There we go.
We got this giant algae reel to look at, though. Look at this thing.
That is
It's
big.
a monster.
Don't throw that around.
It's an arbor. No. Don't put somebody in the hospital.
We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Fenwick. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a mirror lure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. R&R Tackle. From our tackle box to yours. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. And StarTron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvi Sidecast reels allow you to cast over 150 yards with up to 900 yards of capacity. Alvi's state-of-the-art drag and 22-inch retrieve rate per wind is perfect for any surf challenge. Alvi reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvi also comes with a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvius.com.
Dave, we're here at the Workbench and new products.
Yes.
Looks like we have a few here.
There's a few. We're gonna start over here with these Dave Workman Jr. Signature Series. It's a live bait rod. It's made for fishing live bait. Dave Workman, he was like the 6-time National Kingfish SCA champion, and he caught all his fish on that kind of rod right there with fishing with live baits.
Right.
And what makes this rod special? It's a 7-foot rod. It's got a really limber tip. Bring that tip over here. It's got a really sensitive tip on it, but it's got a really good, strong section in the middle here. You can see it only bends so far before it starts to get really strong. But this allows you to feel every little tip of that live bait out there. And then when you hook him up, you got some backbone. This has got nice AFCO lightweight guides on it. They're stainless steel inside. You don't feel, I mean, when you have the drag on, I mean, you have virtually, it's so smooth when you have those guides versus a regular guide. Have a nice roller guide on there.
You know what I really appreciate about this rod is how many roller guides it has.
It's got a lot on it because another thing, because of the way it bends here at the tip, you don't want the rod to ever touch the line to ever touch the rod, and because it bends so tightly right there, that's why they have all those guides there. And because they're the AFCO lightweight ones, it doesn't add any weight to the rod, so you can actually put more on it. It's got a really nice pack bay reel seat and a gimbal with a removable cover on there. So if you don't want to have the gimbal out and catching smaller fish, you don't have to use a belt.
Yep.
So anyway, you can go to strikezonefishing.com. strikezonefishing.com and check that out.
Tell me about the new monster.
We got the brand new Alvi Orbiter. These are just coming into the country, though. You can order them now and have them by late June. They're designed in Australia to Alvi's specs. They just do really great work. 4.7 to 1 retrieve. It's the largest orbiter that they make now. It's 9+1 stainless steel ball bearings. It's got the dual color anodized spool, reinforced carbon rotor. Brass cut pinion, really nice interchangeable handle. They always put it on the wrong side in Australia. I have to switch it over here because I can't do it. Nice carbon drag, big power knob. The power knob comes on all their reels.
Look at the bearing in that.
Exactly. They just make, it's a high quality reel. So.
And where do we go to buy it?
Well, alvius.com, and if you figure out, we'll send you to a dealer as well.
Okay, perfect.
Next, we got some salt donkeys right there. They're new hand-painted jigs. Now, these jigs were made primarily for fishing a crab for sheephead. These are sheephead jigs, believe it or not. And what these jigs allow you to do, they allow you to fish a crab in different depths, and also to keep a real good attachment. You can feel the crab when you have that weight on there. It's kind of hard to, if you let free line a crab out and he's swimming around, it's kind of hard to feel him. Right. But if you got a little weight on him, and you can feel that sheephead when he picks it up and give him the business. I love
that it's got that little sneaky hook that'll hook a sheephead.
Exactly. It's got a really thin but a very strong hook. And you can also use these, Dave Workman again told me, he said, I use these as a first hook on a cutlass fish with it when he's making a rig for kings as well.
All right.
Real quick here, we got the Berkeley Cutter 90 plus. This is a 3.5-inch suspending jerk bait. It's got it casts a long way. It's got a nice rattle in it as well. 2 hooks, so it's got really sharp.
These are the
hooks.
Fusion 19 hooks.
Exactly. Ideal size for a smaller bait. What it does is when you can give it a little twitch and it'll lunge down and then float back up and lunge down and float back up. And usually out in that little float back up is when it gets creamed. It's got a really nice little lip on there. It's got a really special shape.
4 to 6 feet depth is what we run.
Yep, it'll go down to 4 to 6 feet and just wiggles like crazy. And that's what really makes them to smack it, is the way it just wiggles like crazy.
Where do we go? Berkeley.com?
Yes, sir.
All right, good job.
Don't you mean jubilating?
Jubilate.
Lake crazy?
Yeah, it's jubilating.
Gotta use
like
the
crazy.
Rick
I was
word.
trying to leave it for another show. But
Okay,
you guys
okay.
ruined it for me.
Johnny Geis is hitting us with the good stuff in the Upper Fresh region. So, Johnny, close us out and get our weekend started, please.
Hey, Bree. Okay, well, it's time to bait up here. Since we're talking about live bait for fishing, I'll be covering some baits that are working best in this Upper Fresh region at this time. So most artificial baits, they try to mimic a natural food source for the fish to eat. So probably the most popular bait is a minnow. The minnows are usually found at all the local bait stores around most every area lake. So minnows are most commonly used to catch crappie, but they'll also catch bass, brim, and catfish, and about anything else that swims. Minnows are usually fished under a cork or tight line near the bottom using a split shot. The next most common bait is the common earthworm. A box of these worms is probably the cheapest and the easiest bait to use, and they can be found everywhere, even in your backyard. So use a small 8 to 10 size light wire hook and a split shot the worm or fish it under a cork. So you don't see as many people fishing for brim in Texas as they do in some lakes, but the gray cricket's probably the primary live bait for the bluegills. Brim cannot pass up a lively cricket. The best natural bait for stripers, hybrids, white bass, and catfish is shad. And we've got two kinds of shad in our lakes and rivers, the threadfin and the gizzard shad. The threadfin are the smaller size, and usually they're a lot more livelier, but the gizzard shad is better for the large fish like the stripers, big catfish, and bass. Shad are more difficult to catch and keep alive than the other baits, but they're also the main food source of about every species of fish that swims and probably the most effective bait to use. So most anglers that use shad catch them in a cast net. It takes a lot of skill to practice to throw a cast net correctly, and then you also need to take extra care in keeping them alive. So usually fish a shad on a Carolina rig or a split shot rig also. Another great live bait is a black salty. Not well known, but it's a commercial bait raised by Anderson Fish Farms in Lone Oak, Arkansas. Usually a few bait stores around area lakes will carry salties, or you can order them direct from Anderson's. They'll ship them to your door. There are a few more live baits I've used in the past that are effective at times. Crawfish and catawba worms are excellent bait at times. The small baby crawfish can be dipped up in roadside ditches, and they make excellent bait for brim. Also, catawba worms hatch out. They're also excellent bait for catfish and brim. Hey, here's a picture of the pending world record panfish. This red ear brim weighed 6.30 pounds. It was caught by Thomas Farchione in May the 4th out of Lake Havasu in Arizona. Rick, I wonder how big a cricket you need for one this size.
Man, that is so awesome. Congratulations. All right, tell me about the bass on fork, bub.
Yes, sir. They're doing great. Since we're talking about bait, one of the best ways that I use to catch a big bass in summertime is on live bluegills. I accidentally found this out one day while I was trying to catch some big catfish on a live bluegill. The big bass, they love these bluegills, and many of my customers, they catch their personal best in May, June, and July each year on the bluegills. First, we hit a few brush piles. We'll catch a bunch of the 3 to 5 inch bluegills on earthworms, put them in the live well. I rig them up on a Carolina rig and fish them vertically on the points, the humps, and some underwater bridges. Be sure we use heavy lines so you're not breaking any of the big fish off, and we make sure that we take care when unhooking the bass. A circle hook's a good hook to use. Just wind up the slack when you feel the bite. Live bait fishing can get a bad rap sometimes if you don't learn how to properly rig up and keep the fish from swallowing the hook. And you need to learn how to carefully unhook your bass. So bass eat the bait head first, so be sure you set the hook on the bite. I also learned that sometimes a bass and catfish will eat a cut-off brim head, believe it or not, better than a live bait. But not many anglers know this. Catfish and sand bass and big bass will hit a brim head pull slowly along on a Carolina rig. Black salties and live shad also catch a lot of big bass at this time. Here's a picture of a big one caught by one of my customers recently on a bluegill, and that's the size we're catching. So, hey, big bass time's here on Lake Fork. It's the best time to go catch a bunch of big ones, so come on out and let's go fishing.
All right, thank you so much, Johnny. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Fresh region. Johnny says The upper fresh region lakes are fishing is good from the recent rains and high water. The top waters, frogs and buzz baits are working best in the shallows for bass. The crappie are biting best on minnows around the brush piles. Stripers, hybrids, and white bass are hitting chartreuse and silver slabs.
Well, how about that?
That's
That was a big
awesome.
one.
Hey, you just won 3rd place in a Alvy surf casting.
Well, it was a Florida surf casting tournament. Yeah.
And what did you caught a
Through
big
a whiting. It was a whiting. It was 1.38.
But that's
ounces.
a big whiting.
That's a big whiting. Good
Yeah,
job,
it was a
Dave.
big whiting. Yeah.
Well, congratulations,
Yeah,
man. And you
congratulations.
caught
$200 a fishing tackle
on a big Alvy.
Hey guys, Carl's here. Hi, Carl.
Hey.
Thank you so
Hi.
much for being with us
Thanks for
on
having
the
us.
show.
Yes,
Did a
we had
great
fun.
job.
Thank you.
We always love
Thank
having
you.
our captains in the studio.
All right.
Looks like one big happy family.
It is.
Hey, don't forget National Boating Safety Week.
Yes.
Yep.
It starts
Next
on the
week.
22nd through the 28th. And
Wear your
guys,
kill
you
switch.
have to wear your kill switch if you have a 26-foot vessel or smaller. Don't
Yep.
forget.
Wear it.
Tune in next week. Thank you.